Jed MacKay and Alessandro Cappuccio explore why Mark Spector wears the mask as Rampage targets Steve Grant's money, planning on taking it all so Moon Knight can no longer do his job of protecting those who travel by night. Jed MacKay delivers yet another wonderful issue that dives into who Mark Spector is and why he does what he does, this time exploring his use of a mask and why he wears it constantly. I enjoyed the one-off villain Rampage, a character who's been passed around quite a few places in the Marvel Universe, from working for Punisher to going to work for Jigsaw and everyone in between. He was a fun smaller tier villain for Mark to tangle with, and one that fit really well in with the story that Jed has been telling with Mark, in that he is nobody, not even Khonshu's tool, and he was no one's tool, and he needs not a lot of money to do what he does, and anything like that he views as just material things, and he doesn't need them, much like how a priest does. Tigra's involvement in the book was just for a moment, at least for this issue, but it was really great to have Mark have a friend there, a longtime friend as well, and someone who he can talk with on a personal basis with, and kind of pour his soul out and reveal the real reasons behind his mask wearing, coming down to all too human emotion of shame. Shame in all of the things he's done, from the age of Khonshu to that time he'd started carving moons into people's faces. Jed captures the moment so damn well, and I'm hoping we get a little bit more of a follow-up on that moment next issue. Alessandro Cappuccio continues to capture Moon Knight's exploits so well, with some stunning visuals that utilize moonlight really well, having it bounce off Mark's ghost white costume and just the visage of Moon Knight in the big white cape, and just this kind of spectre of vengeance he gives off is just fantastic, and Alessandro captures it so well. Moon Knight issue 4 was another fantastic character-centric issue that delved into Mark's need for the mask, as well as his ideals of what wealth really is and what it really means, culminating in a fantastic and vulnerable moment between friends. I'm going to give this issue a 10 out of 10. Moon Knight issue 4 finds Mark waking up at 6 PM, and by 7 PM he's in another session with Andrea, who asks him about the mask since she has never seen him without it. Mark knows that most of her patients would be in a mask, being that she's in a superhuman medicide, but Andrea knows that each patient has a reason for wearing the mask, and each is different from the next, knowing that he's being evasive on his reasoning. Mark knows that when he's not in the mask, he isn't Mark Spector, and he's not talking about his disorder, since Mark Spector is nothing and no one needs Mark, but the Fist of Khonshu is needed, since he's a symbol of justice, and his masked face is the face of Khonshu, and it's part of his vestments, just like a suit or a shroud is, since that's what dead people wear. Rampage meanwhile complains to his contact about his new office, since the air conditioner hasn't been set up yet, so he has to leave the window open, which is a problem since he's in the busiest neighborhood of Brooklyn, and there's always a festival going on. His contact knows that Rampage going from Silicon Valley genius to working for the Punisher is a twist, but then his face was carved up and he joined forces with Jigsaw. Rampage tells the man to stop, but the mystery man says that he'll give him credit since he just keeps coming back, and he may have what it takes to make it in the villain business after all. Rampage knows the man wants Moon Knight broken, but he can put him on a leash and hit him where it hurts, his money. Rampage cracked into Stephen Grant's accounts, finding millions in them and knowing that his crime fighting takes money to do it, and without it, Moon Knight is just a normal guy, and he knows there is nothing worse than being a normal guy to a millionaire. Reese meanwhile asks why Mark is just waiting around for the secret enemy, but Mark reminds her that Hawley is a vegetable and not talking, and Dr. Badir's beef with him was unrelated, so they are back to square one. Soon Tigra comes by the mission, impressed with Mark's new office, but he reminds her that it's a midnight mission. Greer hugs her former West Coast Avengers teammate as Mark introduces her to Reese, who didn't know that Mark was even an Avenger. Tigra hopes that Mark isn't making Reese call him Mr. Knight, wanting him to take off his mask, but he refuses, knowing the mask protects the people in his life, and if his enemies knew who he was, they could target his friends. Reese reminds him he has no friends, as Tigra says that Mark once made a TV show about Moon Knight and his real name is on IMDb. Mark's phone buzzes and he answers it to the name Mr. Knight, making the women laugh. Rampage is on the other end as he tells Mark that he works for him now, having taken control of Stephen Grant's money, and just as a lesson, he's going to delete $1 million from his account. Mark puts it on speaker as Rampage tells him that that is $1 million he can't spend on his moon copter or his rent at the midnight mission. Mark complies with the man's request to follow his every word as Rampage tells him that he's going to tell him what to do and he will do it. Moon Knight heads out across the rooftops. citing how he can barely hear the man, thinking Rampage is broadcasting from the middle of a street festival or something. Rampage tells him not to worry, but this discussion just cost him another $50,000. He reminds Mark that he is a tool and tools don't question their owner, they just fulfill their purpose. Moon Knight smashes through the skylight and into a meeting of some criminals, told to destroy them by Rampage. Moon Knight easily takes them apart as he finds that they were Jigsaw's men, finding Billy at the nearby bar. Mark tells him that he was told to beat him until he wept, told to tell the villain that Clark says hello. Jigsaw is impressed that Stuart Clark is still alive, wondering if Moon Knight is working for him, so Mark reassures the villain that he'll remind Stuart he isn't working for him in due time, but as long as Jigsaw is here, he might as well beat him up. Later on, Moon Knight tracks down Rampage, confronting him and telling the villain that he has a teenager working for him and she looked up what festivals were going on in the city tonight and narrowed it down to the one they overheard on his calls, and all it took was a little time. Tigra joins Mark, knowing then it was only a matter of the hunt, and he knew a hunter. Rampage thinks they are clever, but it doesn't change anything and he's going to delete another $5 million if he makes another move. Moon Knight knows the villain doesn't know him at all since he is Moon Knight and he has no hold over him since he is no one's tool, not even Khonshu's. Rampage tells him to stay back as Mark calls himself a priest who serves only his people and those who petition for his help. Rampage tries to delete everything and he'll have nothing left, but Moon Knight knows that the money means nothing to him since he's a priest and no wealthy priest has ever been good. Later, after dealing with Rampage, Mark tells Tigra that everyone thinks a new day begins when the sun comes up, but right now at midnight is when the new day begins and it's fought through the darkness in order to earn the light. Tigra knows that there is something in Mark that wasn't there back during their avenging days. After a moment, Mark says that he's made a lot of bad choices and bad things done to people who deserved it, but also ones who didn't, like his friends. He knows that he was once carving moons into criminals' faces, and then he helped Khonshu take over the world and betrayed all his friends on the Avengers just because an insane god said so. He also found out that he has a daughter, but her mother took her out of the country after the age of Khonshu thanks to him being too dangerous to be around. Mark begins removing his mask, knowing all night people have asked him about the mask, wondering if Tigra wants to know the real reason he wears it as he reveals his heavily scarred face, knowing it's so he doesn't have to look himself in the face. Tigra knows that that's a lot to have happen to one person, and Mark knows why does she think the only person who will spend time with him is a teenage vampire who doesn't really like him that very much. Tigra knows she'll hang out with Mark since her son is often on a dimensional field trip with his cat people, so she needs something to occupy her time. Mark wants to hear more about these cat people and her son, and Tigra knows it's a long story, but it's a long time until sunup and until the new day earns the sun.